and have conversations. If you take a look in the chat box, you'll see the kind of overview of the evening. So this conversation began in the summer with Todd Lavassa and Renard Harris here at the College of Charleston and a few others asking the question, how do we honour Dr. O and Mr. Lewis, and honour them in a way that provides an opportunity for healing in community through the sharing of memories. And we also wanted to, think about how we push this conversation further, as they would urge us to do by using their work as an inspiration. And so that this evening came out of that conversation. Unfortunately, I never had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Lewis, but I understand that both he and Dr. O changed many lives through their purposeful actions. I first met Dr. O in 2015 and unintentionally stayed by his side as his friend and colleague in the Gullah Society until he passed away last October. I say unintentionally because, like many others, I couldn't help myself, and I couldn't help but be captivated by his vision for a more loving and just and equitable Charleston. So, like Ade, I dedicated myself to that vision, working alongside him. So when he established the Gullah Society in 2012, he believed that the ancestors demanded our attention and had a vision for a grassroots community organisation that would document, preserve and promote Gullah Geechee history and culture. And so between 2015 and 2020, a small multidisciplinary group of dedicated individuals joined Dr. O in the Gullah Society, determined to achieve that mission. The work required empathy, respect, consideration, and most of all, the ability to listen to each other. And everything that accomplished, especially the reinterment of the 36 ancestors at Anson Street, wouldn't have happened without Ade's insistence that we reinter these children, women and men with honour and dignity. Dr. O was a deeply spiritual man and worked to cultivate a peaceful, generous and caring nature. He was generous with his time, wisdom and money, living in the faith that he always had everything that he needed. He would always say, look at God, whenever things fell into place, better than we could have ever have planned. He had this amazing ability to make his students and colleagues feel special and capable and part of his family. He had moments of righteous indignation, which were all intended to provoke change. And that's exactly what he did. And I'll end here just to say that it was an honour and privilege to work alongside him. And I'm looking forward to hearing other perspectives on both Dr. O and Mr. Lewis's legacy. So I'll pass on to Courtney Hicks.
Thank you, Joanna. I truly appreciate your words and being in this space with you all on this evening. I'm the Outreach and Public Programming Coordinator at the Avery Research Center, but prior to coming into that role at the Avery, I was a student at the College of Charleston. Being a student at the College of Charleston is not easy, not just speaking from an academic standpoint, but also speaking on being a Black woman transitioning into Charleston, coming to a PWI where not a lot of people look like you in the classroom physically in terms of your colleagues and classmates, but also not having that equal representation in the faculty versus the staff. So coming into CFC was a little bit nerve-wracking for It was very scary. It was a time where I did not know what was going on, especially coming in 2015. But Dr. O dramatically and drastically changed my outlook, changed how I perceive a lot of things, changed how I actually activate for change. Dr. O was not Dr. O to me. Dr. O was granddad to me. I'm not going to tell the story of how that term of endearment evolved, but he was someone that made sure that myself and all of his students were not only fulfilled educational wise, but also if they needed anything. Living and being a student is not easy. Dr. O made sure that he was not only feeding us mentally and through educational ways, but also making sure if he grew extra vegetables, providing that for us. If he had a little extra cash, he would take us to get pizza. It had tofu on it. It wasn't the best, but he made sure that we had something to eat. He made sure that we were able to sustain and live the best fulfilling lives that we ever could have. Before Dr. O transitioned, he and I were talking about how I plan to get my PhD and how I need to hurry up and get moving, because if I stop and I don't start back looking and reading and working, then I'm going to lose my drive and want to actually go, because I would get kind of complacent where I am. And I told him, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get to it. I promise. I was kind of lying. But right before he passed, I actually began working on my applications. And when he passed was actually when I was having the hardest time writing my statement of intent. And it was a very difficult time for me, as Dr. O, as I say to a lot of people, was my first positive, very close male interaction from start to beginning. So it really did kind of shake me when he passed, but it also inspired me. So I'm going to read a few excerpts for my statement of intent, just to let you all kind of get a look into how he impacted me intellectually, and also my drive for the change that I seek to make, not only in the Charleston area, but abroad in the field of academia. I got into all of my programs. So I got into 2 of my PhD programs and 4 of my master's programs. And I must say that it had to be because Dr. O was guiding those who were on selection committees to connect with me and connect with my statement of intent. So I'm going to quickly read a few excerpts from my statement of intent. And then I have 2 other guests who are with me, who are near and dear students, also people he adopted as additional grandchildren. Chelsea Jacobs, who we actually have on the call, I will have her going last. And then Adeyemi Oduwale, who was a student and actually had an exam this evening. So I'm going to play his video reflection after I read a few excerpts from my statement of intent. So here's how it begins. When did you realize that you were Black? I'm not just talking about when you recognize the deep, beautiful, varying brown shades of your skin, but rather when you notice that this beautiful birthright also contains so much struggle, pain, and tenacity. Makes you think, right? I vividly recollect when I truly understood what the scope of my Blackness meant, and my life has never been the same. Imagine just graduating from high school, given a full scholarship to the college of your dreams, and frantically preparing yourself for the joy of sweet independence, only to be met with unimaginable tragedy. June 17th, 2015, 1 week before I was going to attend College of Charleston's freshman orientation, Dylan Roof walked into Mother Emanuel AME Church and killed 9 worshipers. These were innocent Black people, happening only 3 blocks away from my future campus. Yes, I've seen Trayvon Martin. Yes, I've become angry about Walter Scott, but never before had an unjust killing of Black people been so personal to me. Does my skin really make me a target? Why? Am I safe? Should I transfer to a HBCU? There were so many thoughts clouding my mind, creating much anger, confusion, and concern. Yet I decided to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attend the College of Charleston. I walked into my first class on the first day of school, Gullah Community with Dr. Ajani Ofunniyin, and instantly felt safe, seen, viable, important, and valued. I had expectations to be lectured to, sternly assigned hundreds of pages of reading due by the next class, but instead was greeted with a conversation. Dr. O created a space that humanized the 6% of Black students at the college, while simultaneously erasing all classism, ageism, and sexism from our dialogues. Within this safe space, I was encouraged not only to learn, but to listen, to lead, and to digest difficult topics and historical context that has been conveniently erased from my grade school history curriculum. My mind was blown. How could I grow up in the low country of South Carolina and not know my history? Why did I not want to learn of Denmark Vesey, David Walker, Septima Clark, and Millicent Brown? I became enraged once again at the neglect of Black influence in my formative education. However, Dr. O intended for us to feel exactly what we were experiencing. He challenged our righteous rage into ways that we could seek change by listening to learn, to understand, and to make progress. Witnessing my passion, I was granted teaching opportunities to assist with his freshman seminar classes and began to develop a deep love for being a truth teller and student advocate. His influence inspired me to become a true scholar of Blackness and dedicate time to learn more about the past to activate for a more equitable future. This once-in-a-lifetime experience changed my views on everything. I became more culturally competent, historically aware, and internalized integral historical content to better understand the current state of our world and what conceptually lies beneath the chaos we currently consume. Dr. O's presence, character, care, and knowledge shifted my desires and prepared me for anything this life may bring. His passion for us ran my purpose. October 7, 2020, Dr. O joined the Ancestors. Prior to his death, we conversed about my plans to pursue higher education with a desire to become a professor. His transition propelled me to continue his legacy of providing once-in-a-lifetime opportunities through educating students about the wonders of Low-Country African-American history and culture. During my educational journey, I began to realize that most of my scholarly interests fell in between the following three categories: Black feminist aesthetics, Gullah Geechee cultural longevity, and community-centered grassroots advocacy, all things that were very near and dear to Dr. O's heart. I'm going to skip a few things that I go deeply into whose tutelage I plan to study underneath, but I conclude by saying, as Dr. O would say, you'll never stop being a student. The day you're done learning is the day you will no longer have breath. While I breathe, I hope to broaden my educational bandwidth through my matriculation in your program. My passion for learning and being a truth teller is unmatched, and I look forward to continue my passion and watch it blossom through the influence of your scholars and the community that surrounds your institution. So as you can see, Dr. O's influence is more than I can ever give thanks or gratitude for. If it wasn't for him, I would not have majored in what I majored in. I would not have felt safe, and I probably would have taken my skills and talents elsewhere. So for all those who say Courtney Hicks is a great additive to the college, it's because of Dr. O. So I truly am grateful and blessed that I had the opportunity to have such close mentorship and love with Dr. O. And I wouldn't have been here if it was not for him. So I truly do appreciate all that he has given. I'm thankful for his family for sharing him with us, and also his partner. So I'm going to share my screen, and I had a reflection from another one of his students, Yemi Oduwale, who is unfortunately not able to be with us today as he is taking a chemistry exam, something that I will never do, praise God. So let us go ahead and play that. And after this is completed, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Chelsea. So whenever this ends, Chelsea, feel free to go ahead and hop in.
Hey, everybody. Some of your time, just a couple moments to reflect on the impact and the life of the late but great Dr. Ade Ofunniyin, and the impact that he also had on my life. It's incredible to think about how fast the time has flown. It's been a little bit over a year since Dr. O transitioned to be with our ancestors. But I feel like that time has flown by so fast because I'm constantly thinking about Dr. O every day, and I can feel him here with me every day, his presence with me every day. Let me start with how I met Dr. O. I met Dr. O as, I want to say, a sophomore in college at the College of Charleston, probably in 2016, maybe 2017. Everyone who's an African American at the college knows that Dr. O's class is a class that you want to take. I'm not sure why that is or how that became to be, but everyone fights for seats in those classes. And Dr. O's class would fill up by day 1 or 2 of registration. And unfortunately, I never got to actually sit in the classroom with Dr. O because that's probably because I was supposed to sit in his class in a different way as a student for Dr. O, but just in a different capacity. So I remember wandering into the African American Studies department to find out like, oh, maybe can this guy like get me a seat in his class with an override or some other way or something like that. So I wandered into his office, introduced myself, and the first thing he told me was, you and I are more alike in more ways than you already know. And I remember wondering, yo, what is this man talking about? Like, you don't even know me and you're talking about how alike we are. But he told me, oh, your name is Adeyemi, meaning crown yields me. And my name is Ade, meaning crown. And secondly, our last name initial is both the same. So our initials were both AO. So I was like, oh, okay, I see what you mean, this and that. And from there, it was just almost like Dr. O took me under his wing as one of his own. And our relationship with one another just continued to blossom. He became one of my mentors at the college, the only mentor I really ever had at the college. From there, it became mentoring, advising, and then we became what I would call just friends, you know. And from friends, we became family. Dr. O, I'm so incredibly blessed to have been able to collaborate with you on different projects with the Gullah Society and National Geographic. Just having the opportunity to just be able to sit in front of you in your class or in your presence as a student were just so influential in my life, and they opened up so many different doors that I would have never had or would have never maybe came across without Dr. O's influence. And for that, I'll forever be grateful. Dr. O, you're one of the bravest people I ever knew. You would never take no for an answer from anybody. And just the impact you had on my life is one that will last and one that I hope to have on the next person's life. We love you. We miss you. Your legacy will last forever. And that's not just in Charleston, that's worldwide. And in the words of Dr. O, peace and ashe.
So as you can see, Dr. O has had a phenomenal impact, not just in the classroom, but in the community. And that's what a lot of professors, especially Black professors of the college, have to kind of play 2 roles. They activate as not only our educators, but also as our honorary uncles, honorary aunties, honorary parents, just looking out for us and giving us that extra love. So Dr. O's influence went further than the classroom. He made it a point, if he saw a Black student on campus or any student, to know them interpersonally and to get to know their innermost thoughts, their feelings, and their desires. So I'm going to go ahead and take it over to Chelsea Jacobs.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Hi, everyone. I hope you all are doing amazing this evening. My name is Chelsea Jacobs. I'm an admissions representative at College of Charleston with the Office of Admissions. And I, too, also had the pleasure of being a student of Dr. Ofunniyin's. Man, it's kind of hitting. This is the first time I've really spoken since our previous services that we were at together, but there's just so many things that I could say, and I couldn't even think of enough words that could really describe how monumental he really was in our life. My experiences that I had with him started on what I would call C of C's bricks, all in my first year experience class. Just like Courtney talked about her first experience with him, as well as Yemi, I also had my first experience that was never like another experience that I had with any other professors. One thing about Dr. O, he was upfront, raw, straight to it. And that's something that I would always appreciate about him. I walked into class and he's sitting on the corner of the table, leg propped up, you know, his cool hat on. He has this floral button down shirt. I said, man, this is a cool dude. I already knew it was going to be an amazing semester. And this was honestly my first Black professor that I had at the College of Charleston. So I was excited, but I was also nervous because it was just an energy that I felt in the classroom the moment that I walked in. As he introduces himself, I always tell this story. He starts off letting us know his name, telling us that his name is Dr. Ofunniyin, that many other students call him Dr. O, that we definitely can, but if we choose to call him Dr. O because we can't pronounce his name, it's because we are just lazy. I can tell you one thing, I wanted this man's respect so bad. Every day I would sit down in that class beside the date of my notes. I'm spelling out his name. Not only am I going to learn how to say your name, sir, I'm also going to know how to spell it. The classroom environment, he already set it, the expectation, and said something that I never heard before. He said, when you guys come into this classroom, I want you to know that you are all A students. And I just want you guys to really let that sink in for a moment, because that's something that I never heard before and no one ever told me this. And that was him basically saying, it doesn't matter what other people thought of you before you walked into this room, what failures you had, what addictions you had, who you may have thought yourself to be. When you walk into this classroom, you are starting at the very top. And the only way that you can come down is if you are the one that actually pushes yourself down there. And being able to start off on that clean plate in that classroom, that was the true foundation of my college experience. Dr. O was very hard on me and he was annoying all the time because he stayed on me. But honestly, I appreciate it. I came in to college as a know-it-all, and I didn't know anything at all. And I learned that very quickly. He was able to share so much wisdom to us. Everything that he experienced, we were able to learn from. The very first book that I read when I was in college was actually a book about his life called DNA. And it literally set the tone for my entire experience, being able to see everything that he endured from different phases of his life and still being able to be in the position that he was in that moment, feeling into his youth. I really did appreciate that. I originally came in to be a news anchor. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And he would always tell me that he supported me. He would always tell me that I'm dynamic. He would say, you powerful girl, you're powerful. And would always tell me everything that I'm capable of. But he would always pull out the things that I didn't even see within myself. So he pushed me into different roles at the institution. I became a peer facilitator underneath his instruction. And that was my first interaction truly working with students. And I fell in love with it. Every semester I worked under him. It got to the point the registrar's office had to call me in because I was taking his class every single semester. Just as Yemi said, we really did fight for seats. And it got down to the point they told me, Miss Jacobs, you will no longer receive credit for these classes because you've taken every class that he's had. And guess what I did? I still took every single class, receiving no credit, just because I wanted to be able to be in his environment and soak up all of the wisdom that he had to give. Outside of the classroom, just like Courtney said, just like Yemi said, Dr. Ofunniyin was like family. He was the only professor that I could call and let them know when I'm having an issue. If he needs to fuss me out, he'll fuss me out. If we're hungry, he's making sure that we're eating. Even if we didn't ask, he knew the things that we needed before we would even say anything. I remember when me and Courtney were roommates during my senior year of college, he would call us and just let us know that he's dropping off groceries to the apartment. He was just such a selfless and loving individual. The first man that I met for a very long time that had such positive intentions for my life, and that will forever be appreciated. He made me discover my love for working with students. I ended up changing what I wanted to do my senior year of college, and I'm now working with the Access team in admissions to help not only recruit, but also retain students of color. It was at College of Charleston, and I always like to say this, when I really finally knew what it meant to be Black. Even though I went to a predominantly white institution, I was able to learn so much about my culture that I never knew, that was never taught to me in the school systems where I came from. And it was because of Dr. O that I was able to finally find out about important people like Denmark VC, Asada Shakur. These are individuals that we are supposed to know about, and learning about my light went off, guys. I'm sorry. I hope you can still see me. Learning about all of the bricks that have been laid right there on our campus, or where our library is built, or the different gates that we see. All of this amazing stuff that makes Charleston the tourist city that it is came from our ancestors. So being able to travel on the road, recruiting other students that look just like me, and they ask me, oh, is there any Black people there? And being able to spill all of the knowledge that he's instilled into me makes me smile each and every day, and makes everything so much more worth it. So I probably went over my 5 minutes, but Dr. O, he has changed my life tremendously. It was him that allowed me to find my purpose and what I should be doing in this thing that we call life. He constantly encouraged me to push on and always go beyond my limits. And like Courtney said, never stop learning. I am fierce and I am strong and confident because of the person that I saw when I walked into that classroom freshman year at 18 years old. And now at 23, I know that he is looking down on me, and he is very proud of the students that he had. So thank you, Courtney, for this opportunity. I will always be happy to rave about Dr. Ofunniyin because he was such an amazing man, and we will always continue to uphold his beautiful legacy.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. I wanted to be very strategic in who I picked to do reflections, and the first people to come to my mind were Yemi and Chelsea, because if you saw Dr. O on campus chilling with students, most definitely one of us were in the mix, running and slapping each other, laughing, because we were laughing at something funny that he said. As we bring it to a close, just to let you know how Dr. O starts off from the jump when he meets the students. So I came to the College of Charleston, as I mentioned before, very nervous. I was the designated Black friend all through high school. I had my little Patagonia, my Clarks. I don't even know I had that outfit on. Had my little weave in with my little curls. Had my leave out, was not blended because that humidity caught me off guard when I first moved out here. Dr. O sat on the corner of the desk. He looked at everybody. He walked up and down the rows, and he stopped by me. And I was like, what is this man doing? Like, why is he stopping? He lifted one of my curls on my unit. He said, sister, you know you Black, right? Take this out by next class. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And right before he passed, I saw him at Walmart. And that's when I just started my fitness journey, because Dr. O was very nervous about me eating all this red meat, and I was extremely overweight. And I just started my fitness journey, and I was working out. People were able to start seeing me get smaller or whatever, and I started my locks. And Dr. O stopped with it. I showed him, I took him outside because I wanted to show him that I bought a new car. And he said, Courtney, now you got Black. You're so Black, it's scaring me. It's scaring me. You named your car after Shaka Zulu. You got dreads. You eating healthy, you giving me vegan recipes, you got Black. And I was just very happy to know that I finally had evolved into the person that Dr. O saw and knew that I was on that first day of class. He had a special gift of seeing everyone's potential on first jump. He saw everyone's potential, and that's how I knew that he was so aligned with spirit. He was so aligned with everything that he said that he was a part of, because he was able to read everyone like an open book, and he made each and every one of us better. And so I really do appreciate you all yielding time for us to have our reflections. We ended perfectly on the dot at 7:30. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Evelyn Nadell as we transition from talking and giving praises and reflections of Dr. O to also another great man, Mr. Leroy Lewis.
Thank you, Courtney. What a wonderful night. I am happy and honored to bring to our audience tonight Leroy Lewis. And I want to begin by saying thank you to all Leroy's family and friends who are joining us virtually from everywhere. Leroy was an educator for more than 30 years in South Carolina and Washington, D.C. He returned to Charleston in 2001 to work as a facilitator, counselor, and director of the Upward Bound program. The last 7 years of his life, he spent as community outreach coordinator for the Office of Community Relations. Leroy was my colleague and my friend for more than 15 years, and I have been blessed to have been one person in his circle of many friends that loved him and that he loved very much. Leroy Lewis loved unconditionally and equally everyone that he called family, whether by blood or friendship, were invited to his table of life, and he always made room for more. Leroy loved life, walked in his faith, and was a person of true integrity. He lit up the room when he walked in, and he was such a joy to be around. His greatest love was working with and helping students, and many of our students at the college affectionately called him Father Time. His gift of looking at everything in his life through the lens of love and faith taught me to be a better person and stronger. There were three of us together with Leroy the last few hours of his transition. His sister, Anna Lee Daly from Greenville, South Carolina, who's with us tonight in our audience, and Reggie Parrish, a close friend of his from DC, and you'll hear from him in a bit. Tonight, I've asked three friends, just three friends, to speak on the impact that Leroy had on their lives from loving him and sharing life with him. There were virtually hundreds of people I could have asked, but I wanted to get you home before Christmas. My guests tonight are one of his most current students, Amira Vicker, who is currently working at the college in the Upward Bound program. Matt Miller, Leroy's first student, will be speaking to us from Washington, D.C., and closing our segment will be a longtime friend of Leroy's, Reggie Parrish. I'm turning it over now to Amira.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I hope y'all can see my screen that I'm sharing. This is Mr. Lewis, Miss Evie, and my baby girl, Journey. I'm so blessed that Mr. Lewis was able to meet my little one because she's my angel. So before I start crying already, I'm gonna read what I wrote because I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. And I'm sure I'll continue to speak from my heart. Ashe. I am is one of the most powerful statements someone could express, verifying and solidifying anything that follows it. Today, I want to put emphasis on another powerful statement. Mr. Lewis is. Mr. Lewis is passionate, committed, kind, considerate, important, powerful, influential, significant, prominent, guiding. Mr. Lewis is a mentor, a father figure, and a light in so many people's lives. Mr. Lewis is so much more to me than all the adjectives I just listed. I have known Mr. Lewis since my undergraduate days when he saw me and my best friend Sarah fit to work as Upward Bound summer counselors. One time, and I told this story before, so one time Sarah and I were late. We were late getting on the bus for our summer college tour trip, and we were rushing back. I mean, running down the block. Come on, kids. And Mr. Lewis was on the corner behind the bus with his belt out. He was ready to go to work. But the crazy thing about that moment is that I felt like he was a father that I never had. You know, that was a move of endearment. And all that he had to do was give us that look, and we never messed up again. But as a matter of fact, I'm now a permanent staff member in the same exact program, where I learned more about the value of the village that still to this day comforts me, teaches me, and guides me. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Mr. Lewis is an amazing chef. He sure was. Not only did he nurture your mind and soul, but he didn't leave your tummy out of the holistic approach. Mr. Lewis, you put your foot in those chewies. I just want you to know that. He fed a 52 passenger bus full of Upward Bound students with his chewies, and they were delicious. And that red rice and fush, oh, don't get me started. Sarah and I, we got to experience having Mr. Lewis's food and celebrating with his family. And so we definitely felt like family. And I also want to say that just recently I met a woman named Miss Gary, and we crossed paths. We realized we had crossed paths on Mr. Lewis Day. And we were conversing, and I had a moment, of course, my eyes were watering up, and I had a moment, and I was like, oh my God, here he is. Still doing it, still connecting people, still being that village. And I was like, I see you, sir. You know, Mr. Lewis is still with me, and I feel him. And I want to say to you, Mr. Lewis, you never left us. You never left us out of your life. And I want to thank you for being you. Everybody here knows that God is love, and honey, he showed out when he sent you. And I love you, and I thank God for you, Ashe. And then before I go down, I'm gonna pass it to Matt. So thank y'all so much for your time.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Miller. And I mean, I'm just blown away by not only the testimony that I heard about Dr. O, who I've never had the opportunity to meet. But just hearing, just other people's perspective on Leroy Lewis, or as what some of us call him, Lee or Little. My daughters call him Uncle Lee. You know, he was just that to everybody. But it's like there's such a similarity between him and what I'm hearing about Dr. O as well. Wonderful. My history with Mr. Lewis first was in DC in 1986, 87. It was my last year in high school. In fact, I had to do that year over again because I was street kid, you know. And it was actually a school that was like it was a level 4 high school for youth. It's like second, third chance high school. So Mr. Lewis was there when I got there, and he was his energy was different, you know, and he just automatically just commanded attention. And there were quite a few kids. We were pretty rowdy back in those days, and he really held court. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was how all of the kids, they were all attracted to his spirit. And so even during lunchtime, everybody was just hanging in his room, catching whatever kind of vibe in his room. He created that space. I remember, and I came from an artist family, jazz, listened to a lot of jazz, but I remember he used to give pop quiz or tests in the class. And I remember this like it was yesterday. And, you would go, you got this quiz coming up. And it's a whole vibe. There's incense burning. We still played records back then. Some of you young folk. So he had the record player in the classroom, and he had a couple of albums, and he would play like some Michael Franks. And not many people knew about Michael Franks. Even as a youngster, I knew about Michael Franks because I listened to jazz and but this guy's playing Michael Franks in the class. And he immediately sold me. And so, I looked up at him and I said, "What do you know about Michael Franks?" And he says, "What do you know about Michael Franks, sonny boy?" In his way, And that was our connection, at that point. And I think he may have saw something in me to really mentor. He really mentored me. At that point, I was like one credit out of high school. I just wanted to get that class and go home or whatever. I had no drive, no ambition other than to just get out. And he would encourage me to, take other classes like street law and African American history, which I had no interest in. Street law, the only reason why was because I had already had some dealings with the law by the time I was 17. And there he was, he was like, "Come and take this class." And I took the class, and he taught the class, and it was just so impactful. Not only was it so impactful, but I probably should have been a lawyer instead of a musician. I'd probably make a whole lot more money, but I digress. But he encouraged that. And he encouraged that. He had another class, African American history. And I didn't want to take that class. I don't want to know anything about Africans jumping out of trees and bushes. And I'm rooting for Tarzan at the end of the day, And it was through his encouragement that I take this class. And I took the class, and just immediately, because of his style of teaching, because of his personality, he puts humor in everything, which is what I love. You're going to laugh at him, and matter of fact, Leroy Lewis was the very first man, and I had a full head of hair back then. He was the very first man to ever tell me that I would go bald, and I was 17 at the time, and so, because we used to tease him because of his hair. So he had that kind of humor. He was just totally relatable. But just through him encouraging me to really step my game up in terms of, increasing my knowledge of and for our culture. It really allowed me to get on a path that, it's a path that's taken me all over the globe pretty much. And so, I have to give big thanks and honor to him, because he was the one that really empowered you. He really gave you that when you didn't believe in yourself. He knew how to build you up with his, the loving spirit he had, and just him being a regular person. And so I've had several mentors, but he's definitely that guy. And beyond mentorship, he was able to really, Leroy Lewis built a house, not necessarily a physical house, but he built a house. He built a house of people, just he's a connector. So he connects you to other people in his circles, and then you're part of this family now. and it's a very unique family. It's unique. It's really unique. And I can't go without saying how great of a man he is. I say he is because I really can't really tell you right now. I don't even know the day that he transitioned. I really don't. I know that's, but he never left me. You know, he never left me. His spirit, you know, he lives through me. You know, and that's the beauty of being able to access that. And so it's always there with me. And so his transition was definitely symbolic. They got a good one up there. They got a good one. They got a funny one too. They got a good one, but you know, he still lives. And I just wanted to share a quick little thing that I put together. Well, there's two things that I did. I don't know how. I can just share one. If I can, let me share screen. Here we go. So this is just like some pictures that I found. And I just put together like a little collage. So this was me at my high school graduation. That's mom and dad, but Leroy was definitely like a father figure as well. This is my first visit to Charleston with my wife and daughter at the time. There's Reggie looking like he was 12. And that's on King Street in Charleston. That's my daughter, my first daughter, and Uncle Lee. You know, that's some of us in front of the house, and just, you know, just this group of friends that he put together that became family. You know, he would occasionally come back to DC to visit, so we would always get together, or we'd go down there and to Charleston and stay for a while. And you know, this was the last gathering, one of the last gatherings that he actually assembled this right here. And these are just some big knucklehead friends that, you know, are part of Lee's connection, you know. So he's always there, you know, just like in this picture, he's always there. You know, I give thanks for being able to access his spirit, his voice. You know, we have arguments all the time still. You know, so yeah, that's really the relationship that I have with Lee. You know, I've cried, I've laughed, the emotion comes and goes, you know, but it's just an honor to be able to access his spirit. And I'm so glad that I was one of the chosen ones to be here, because I know that he's impacted tons of lives, and people can probably get on here and articulate it far better than I can. But this is spirit to spirit. This is how I know it. This is how I know him. This is how we know we. And I just wanted to come on and share that, and just thank you again for having me on here. So I'm gonna now punt it over to another big head guy from the DC region by way of Lynchburg, who, you know, under the auspices of Leroy Lewis Jr., became my surrogate cousin. So I'm gonna punt it over to Reginald Parrish. I think there's a way that I unshare this, right? Yes. Stop, and here we go. And I'm gonna punt it over to Reginald Parrish.
Okay. Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks to I knew you would do that. All the great speakers, you know, before me, and I too feel like I have a better sense of Dr. O. I did not know him, but it was just fascinating hearing the testimonies of the students. So I guess I'm the only non-student, or I should say classroom student, because I am a student of Leroy Lewis. I was a student, I am still a student. initially, when Evie told me that asked me to say some remarks, I had to think long and hard because I didn't want to get emotional. It's probably the most I've talked about Leroy since he's passed. But I said, you know what? Anything for Lee. I'll do it. I'll get through it. So I'll make it happen. But and it was actually a great process of just thinking back through the memories and the times that we had. It was actually very therapeutic. I laughed, I cried. So hopefully all the crying is done. There won't be any crying tonight. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. Like Matt said, so many people could have been given these remarks, but I'll try and represent kind of as the OG or the UNC in the group. But I first met Leroy Lewis, and we call him Lee in DC. I first met him in 1993 in Washington, but I really got to know Lee in 1997. I was in a situation, I was there working for the federal government, so I should have been doing okay, right? But I got in a situation where I needed to be out of my housing within 24 hours. So I got on the phone and I called Lee either that morning or early afternoon and told him the situation. I just told him I needed a place to stay. It was a 30-second conversation because the only question he asked me is, what time will you be here? So that same evening, I showed up on his doorstep, went right in, he knocked on the door, brought me in, went right into the kitchen, and served me salmon cakes and red rice. And from that point on, I was like, we're there. We are there. We're brothers. And really the two themes from that story and why I tell that story is that he opened his heart, he opened his home, he opened his wallet without asking any questions, without judging. And to this day, I don't think we ever talked about why I didn't have housing for that time, but it didn't matter. The only thing he would do was turn a negative into a positive. He talked about going forward. What do we do going forward? We don't dwell on the negative, we don't dwell on the past. So those are things that really stand out for me. So what I'll do is just kind of touch on a couple of things that were really important to him. And these things have been mentioned before with Dr. O and with Lee. The education theme, the whole village, and that was talked about in several presentations. But he truly believed that it's, in any situation, it takes a village, not just education, but particularly education. It takes a village. I actually witnessed him because I knew him at Spingarn. I was living with him at that time. I saw how he dealt with the students. He had the same expectations that he would have of anyone. You know, he knew their circumstances, but that didn't matter. Let's focus on the positive. How do we move forward? And he held them accountable. He had standards of excellence that he expected. And he would pull out that belt for them and chase them down the hall at Spingarn. So I actually witnessed that. So, and what he also did was he believed that education was a community venture. So I hauled many kids in my car, many of his students, to bowling alleys, skate rinks, to Kiwanis Club, etc. I even served on the parent advisory board, and I'm not a parent. You know, I am not a parent, but obviously he felt like I had something to add. We dealt with parents. He had the parents engaged, so he really put his heart and soul into it, and I really appreciate that because I think that really resulted in me now, or in the last, I'd say 10 years, really getting in the community and being a mentor to young adults and to returning citizens. And I credit him for that. I saw the way he dealt with people who, whether you had nothing or whether you had everything, you were the same to Leroy Lewis. You were welcome. He would treat you the same. So I mad props for that. And just one other important area, I'll speak about family and friends. And when he left DC, I think was late 1998, 99, to move back to help take care of his mom and dad, we obviously missed him a lot. So some of us would take trips to Charleston on a regular basis. And 697 King Street, which Matt showed you, was the deal. I see Terry on and Kim and some other folks, but that was where we gathered. That was another village. We could all come together, be who we were, positive, food, music, art, all of it. And I just really think that was so important. I got to I look forward to, and this is just a little side thing, where we would always go to Martha Ann's and get dinner to take to his dad, Mr. Lewis, at the elder care home. And that was just a very pleasant little special time that we had, because Mr. Lewis was a wonderful, his father was a very wonderful soul. And of course, we could not leave Charleston without going to John's Island, where Lee's would prepare the red rice, the fish, the turkey wings, and collard greens, and all that good stuff. So he really brought the cuisine to us. He taught us how to enjoy it, and we had some wonderful times. And in the last years, as he started to get ill, one of the things that I appreciate most is that he started to refer to me as my brother from another mother, and I will never forget that. And to this day, I consider Lee's, Anna, and Sandy as my real brother and sister. So that's how we talk to each other. So I credit him for that. And I just think that he created something very special. And now we have a DC Charleston network of family and friends. And when they come to DC, we got them. And when we go down there, they got us. And that's, I'll just name a couple people. I can't name everybody, but certainly Terry and Kelly, Art and Dudley, Evie and Duke, Max and Monique, just wonderful. Kelly, Dudley, this family that we have, and Lee, that connection was because of him. And just in closing, I'll speak a little bit about his spiritual connection. Lee was a man of faith. And he wasn't afraid to tell anybody. He was a man of faith. He served his fellow man. He fed his fellow man, his friends, the people who needed it and the people who didn't need it. He would feed us all. He treated people the way that he wanted to be treated. So he did what he was supposed to do. And his connection, not just to the Holy Father, but to the Mother Earth. There's some of us still here in the DMV who've got gardens that Leroy planted and till the soil, and we're still getting beautiful growth. I've got crepe myrtles in my yard that I look at every day as tribute to him. So I just can't say enough about what this man meant to us. And I'm so glad that I was invited to do this, and just look forward to talking with anybody who wants to talk about Leroy Lewis. So thank you.
Thank you to everyone. That was amazing. I am Dr. Tanya Matthews. I'm with the International African American Museum, and y'all are going to be among the few people that know that I am a crier. If anybody was over here watching my nose get red, then my camera have to go off so I could handle a few tears that slipped. And I would say that I never had the honor of meeting either of these men. But I wrote a poem once. It was a long poem, but the last line of that poem was, "A man who is truly loved can never die." And I have never understood that line more than I do this evening. And that energy is radiating to a point where I understand. I just lost some people that are really important to me. And me actually being in the room with them is literally happening right now. And so I think the attempt was to pick a non-crier to sum up things by thinking that since, I was a little distant, I'm into work, but a little distant, just trying to sum up things. I'm gonna hold it together. Sum up, what I heard, and then suggest a few concrete steps to move forward, to keep the work going. And then I think we're gonna open it up. So in sum, we heard of teachers and mentors and grandfathers. We heard about keeping and creating spaces of welcome and authenticity. We heard of challenge, of bravery, of healthy stubbornness. We heard of the real. We heard of truth. We heard of legacy. We heard joy overpowering the morning. We heard of generations and fathers and uncles and villages. We heard of food, of good food, of Black food, of shared food. We heard of stabilizing forces. We heard of foundation. We heard of God-fearing men. We heard of relentless commitment to education. We heard a flat-out disbelief in the existence of the uneducatable. We heard of standards and expectations and commitments. We heard of the real. We heard of love. We heard of legacy. We heard that all of this is unique. We heard that none of this is unfamiliar. So as I was listening to all of that and sort of like writing down things and they were crossing over each other, I started asking myself, can we all be teacher mentor? Can we all hold the joy and reverence for elderhood and passing over that is so relevant to the African, Gullah, Geechee, African-American diasporic traditions? We don't just mourn in the passing, we always shout for joy. That is how we do. Can we hold on to that? Can we leave this kind of legacy that demands this kind of gathering? Can we do that? Can we ourselves leave the kind of legacy that demands this kind of gathering? And then I realized, of course we can. That's not the question. The question is, will we? Right? I think because in all that we communicated and all the joy and all the power, we also understand that these men were working. It was working. It was hard. It was hard. It was hard work. It was some weight. It was some carrying. And so I think all of us know that we can do and be all of those things, but that's not the question. The question is, will we? So 5 suggested marching orders, just suggestions. Take them under your own advisement. Number 1, commit to a world in which every child will have a Dr. O or a Mr. Lewis. And I don't mean funding a Dr. O or a Mr. Lewis or sponsoring one. I mean, who are you? I mean you, right? I mean us. There are 40 of us on here right now, so there should be 40 Dr. O's and Mr. Lewis's. What happens if we commit to a world in which every child will have a Dr. O or Mr. Lewis? Number 2, ask yourself daily, who are you not to be a carrier of the culture or a steward of the history? No matter who you are, where you're coming from, what books you have read, what books you have not read, who are we not to be a carrier of this? Who are we not to take on that? Number 3, never, ever, ever sit on the sidelines of the debate about our children's education, period. Okay, and that has been mentioned in the chat. I'm gonna thank Dr. Brown for getting that chat part going, absolutely. Never sit on the sidelines of that debate. I don't care if you've never had children. I don't care if your children are grown and gone and Ivy League or whatever. Never sit on the sidelines. There is no such thing as other people's children. And we need to start taking on that as an ethic, just in the way that we move. Number 4, join something, volunteer with something that you did not create. I know we got a lot of founders on here. I know we got a lot of bosses, all that kind of stuff. I know everybody trying to say the world in their own unique way, but there's something that happens when we step up behind and beside something we did not create, right? That's a different kind of gift. So join something, volunteer for something that you did not create, and help it grow in the way a Dr. O or a Mr. Lewis would. And drag a friend. preferably one that can cook red beans and rice. Okay. And then number five might be the most important. When they try to bury you for doing numbers 1 through 4, remember that you are a seed. And with that, those are the marching orders. And I think at this point, we have 2 more official responses, and then we open up the mic. And so I need to turn it back over to a moderator who actually knows who those 2 official responses will come from.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Matthews. That was fantastic. Hey, I love your marching orders. And of course, you killed it with that last one. That was fantastic. So my name is Renard Harris. I'm Chief Diversity Officer here. And shout out to Todd Levasseur and Joanna Gilmore, 2 amazing people. We started talking, about these 2 amazing people, and Todd, with his sincere, caring, beautiful heart that he has, it started off a conversation like just to remember a memorial. And the more we talked, the more it became something else. The more we was like, it can't just be a memorial. There are words, ideas, this energy lives on. And it has spun into something absolutely beautiful. So just big shout out to Dr. Gilmore and Dr. Levasseur. It's absolutely fascinating. I tell you what's interesting though, as we tried to shape this, it was so much. Like, how do you bottle it to capture this? Because we knew 2 amazing people. So I think it's my task to kind of connect this to the College of Charleston and then open up the mic, open up the floor. I'm a big quote person, so I love these amazing quotes I've heard today. Activist for change, one of the bravest people I've ever known, upfront, raw, straight to it, educator, lit up the room when he walked in. His energy was different, his style of teaching. I can't tell you the date of his transition because he never left me. A man of faith, fed his fellow man, served his fellow man, a connection to Mother Earth. And I don't even have to assign either one of those guys because these stories began to mesh absolutely beautifully. It's amazing with all the amazing history we hear about at this college about race. We also hear a lot about experiential learning and interdisciplinary. And the more I heard these stories about these 2 guys, these guys were the epitome of that. I mean, they were interdisciplinary, they were experiential. I don't know about the story about my man with the belt. That's hilarious, So I don't want to be long. I want to open up the floor, but I will tell you, my close colleague, Todd Levasseur, texted when you guys were telling stories and said, I absolutely love hearing these stories, and I fully agree. So thank you to all the presenters, everyone that shared. I think Todd and I will see each other in the hall, and if I know Todd, he will hug me because he's a hugger, and I will say thank you, Todd, and thank you, Joanna, and thank you, everyone. So I'm going to get out of the way. Todd, unless there's something you want to close with, I'm ready to open up the floor to all the amazing people that have joined us tonight. I do want to say this. Well, I'm sorry, one more thing. I'm from Mississippi near New Orleans, and I think about Second Line often, where we celebrate. Wow, what a celebration. What a celebration. So thank you. Todd, talk to us, brother. What's happening, man?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'll stop recording now in